So, you know about the classic signs of imposter syndrome. Let's bring this microphone a bit closer to me. You know about the classic signs of imposter syndrome. You've heard about the secret signs of imposter syndrome. So now you're wondering, why does that matter? Is imposter syndrome actually holding me back? Now, if you even remotely suspect that you have imposter syndrome, or if there are results that you are getting in your career right now, if where you're at in your career isn't where you want to be, then you're going to want to listen to today's live broadcast. Welcome. I'm Caroline Flanagan. I am the career coach for lawyers with imposter syndrome who want to progress their career. And I help you get more recognition, better balance, have more confidence, and do your day-to-day job of being a lawyer with so much more ease than you are probably experiencing right now. Now, today is the third in a series of live broadcasts I am doing on imposter syndrome, right? Where I'm sharing my knowledge, my insights, my experience all around imposter syndrome so that you can more deeply understand, well, what it is, and most importantly, how it's holding you back and what you can do to change that. So here's how these lives work. I start by just taking one topic, one question, and giving a short introductory talk on that. And then I'm going to answer any and all questions that you have around that topic. So if, as I'm speaking, you have some questions, then please put them in the comments below if you're watching this live, and they should appear on the screen, and I will do my best to answer them as we go. If you're watching this on the replay, welcome to the replay. Thank you for tuning in. But don't be afraid to still add your comments. I'll come back to this post, or I'll come back to, I'm always on social media. So if you do have any comments on what you hear today, any feedback, anything you disagree with, agree with, something that really resonates, I want to hear it all. This is about having a conversation with you about your experience, not necessarily just me preaching to you the whole time, although there's a bit of that as well. Captions. I'm still trying to master captions on the different platforms. I'm actually live streaming this to YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn at the same time, and they all have different ways of doing captions. So the way I've got it set up is you can turn on captions on each of those platforms. So if you can't see them, then fiddle around with your settings, you should be able to, or just hover over the video and you'll see that little CC mark in the bottom of the screen, which should enable you to see them. And finally, engage. Yes, I want to see your likes. I want to see the hearts. I want to see the celebrations or whatever emoji face comes to you as you're hearing this material. It's all about the conversation, as I said. And if what you're hearing is of interest to you, or even if it's not, and it makes you think of a friend or someone in your network or your community who might find it useful, then please do share it. I do get quite a lot of inquiries, a lot of interest. A lot of people find me on the back of a referral or an introduction or a share. So you're doing the world a great service by sharing this content, this free, valuable content with your community. Let's tell the whole world about imposter syndrome and help them to stop it holding them back. Okay. So far in this live series, yes, I wanted to just recap for those of you who are finding this for the first time. I've done 2 other episodes. In the first one, I talked about the classic signs of imposter syndrome. In the second one, I talked about the secret signs of imposter syndrome. And that was a really important episode because it talked about the actions and the behaviors that you may be displaying on a day-to-day basis, not knowing that they are secret signs of imposter syndrome. So now you have a lot of examples that will help you recognize it in you, see yourself, make you aware as you go through your day about how imposter syndrome is really showing up. Now, if you missed those 2 live episodes, then you don't have to have heard them in order to get value out of this one, but I do want to encourage you to go back to the beginning and listen to those lives. I think what I'll do is on the various social platforms, I'll try and pin these live episodes so that you can find them really, really easily. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, it's super easy. You can just look and see it in the list of episodes. Amazing. So today's live, what we're talking about, now we know how to spot whether we have imposter syndrome, how it's showing up in your day-to-day work. We're talking about the impact of imposter syndrome, the impact it is having on your career, and specifically how it's holding you back. Now, I haven't got this in my notes, but I do want to flag, and maybe I'll come back to this another time, how there is amongst some of you the belief that imposter syndrome is actually having a positive effect on your career. I see quite frequently people saying, and I think this is interesting, it's often someone who doesn't necessarily suffer from imposter syndrome or have it so acutely that it has a negative impact on them. But what they'll talk about is how the insecurity of imposter syndrome will drive them to achieve. And it could be that maybe consciously or unconsciously, you have the sense that the feelings you have of imposter syndrome are driving you to work as hard as you work. So I talked about overworking, for example. And the thing about overworking is an example of one of the things that you do in order to, consciously or not, avoid that fear of being exposed. And so when you start getting lots of results, when you do well, when you succeed, and you're someone who overworks, you may attribute your success to the overworking. In other words, you may think that the imposter syndrome that drives you to overwork is actually the thing that creates success in your career. I'm not going to deal and get stuck into discussing that with you now. I'm going to park it. And just, I want to invite you to keep on the back burner this question or this idea. I want to offer you that your success would not only happen anyway if you weren't being driven by your imposter syndrome, but actually you could be more successful, and most certainly can be more successful is what I want to say, when you learn to solve your imposter syndrome and actually fulfill to your potential. I'm going to park that and come back to it because it's a whole other subject. But back to what we want to talk about today, and that is really understanding how your imposter syndrome is holding you back. And to answer this question, what we need to do is understand how the results that you're living and experiencing in your work, in your career right now, how they are created. Now, most people think, and you're probably one of them, that results are, or your experience of your day-to-day work is something that kind of happens to you. It's the result of what's going on around you, your external circumstances. So the boss you work for, the department or group you work in, the clients that you have, the industry that you work in, the culture of the firm where you work, all of those external factors, those circumstances which are or can feel so out of your control. So it can seem that and I talk in terms of results, the results, and by results I mean the day-to-day experience you have at work, it will feel like that is something that happens to you. But one of the amazing things about coaching is it shows us how much the results we're creating, not just in our careers, but actually in our lives, are created by us. So your day-to-day experience of work, the extent to which you love it, don't love it, struggle with it, or really thrive in it, is created by you, not by those external circumstances. This is such a wonderful thing about coaching, and it's one of the, we get really stuck into how results are created by our actions, how our actions are driven by our feelings. We get really deep into that in imposter syndrome coaching for lawyers, because it's that understanding which is really the trigger for a transformation from being somebody who really is just trying to survive in this industry and somebody who learns to thrive in it no matter what the circumstances are. It is the most powerful thing about coaching, and it's what you get when you join Imposter Syndrome Coaching for Lawyers. It's one of the most incredible experiences I know my coaches have, and you can have too. So now I want to get really specific about what those results might be. I'm going to talk about 4 types of results. In other words, 4 ways in which you might be experiencing your work or feeling about your work right now. The first one is a feeling that you have no balance at all. It may even be so extreme or so strong that you feel that you're at risk of burnout, right? That you can't go on like this. So this is the first type of result or experience you might be having in your career right now. Now, this means you're working all the time and you feel like you have no control over your schedule, and your personal life, right, is starting to suffer. You personally, and your personal life starts to suffer. Here's how you know this is you. I'm going to give you some examples. You might keep missing your child's bedtime, like making plans to be home in time for it or for dinner with your partner, and you keep missing it. You keep coming up with, not intentionally coming up with reasons or excuses, but something always comes up. You feel you're growing ever more distant from your partner or your loved ones because you're not there so much. You're having to give so much to work. You don't exercise as much as you need to. You don't eat as well as you need to. Your friends often get together without you. Perhaps sometimes they've given up, like inviting you, because they know you always cancel. Your holidays are repeatedly ruined by work. You're doing well, but you know that the way that you're working and what it's costing you to do well is unsustainable. You may even be thinking something's got to give. So those are all examples of how you know that balance is the struggle for you. Like lack of balance, risk of burnout is a result that you're getting in your career and your life right now, and it's a result that you don't want. A second result you might be getting in your career right now, or your experience of work right now, is that you are in a constant state of anxiety and overwhelm. So always feeling anxious and overwhelmed. Here's how you know that this is you. You get that sinking feeling when you go into work or when you think about work. Any mention of work kind of, or what's coming up over the next week, or a project that you're working on, a deadline that you have, fills you with dread. You don't enjoy your work. You start questioning your decision to be a lawyer. Now, I see this, I hear this all the time, going back to that thought, oh, well, I didn't really choose this career. I just ended up here and it was the most obvious next step, and this was never my intention, and maybe it's not what I really wanted. So you're doing that, questioning your earlier decisions, questioning all the work, hard work and application it took to get here. That's what is one of the ways you know that work has just become so anxiety inducing and overwhelming. So you're questioning your decision to be a lawyer in the first place. That's an unwanted result that you are getting in your life, in your career right now. The third unwanted result, the third experience that you may be getting right now, is that feeling that you've still got no confidence. And I say still because it doesn't matter how much you succeed. You've got actually a catalogue of successes to your name. You have, for a start, you are in the legal profession, and that's no small achievement. You've worked so hard to get here. And pretty much everybody I have coached and I talk to about imposter syndrome, you've all achieved so much. But when the level of your confidence, belief in yourself is a complete mismatch to the string of successes you have to your name, then you know that the issue, the challenge, the unwanted result that you are experiencing in your career right now is a lack of confidence, an inability to build or grow your confidence, no matter what you do. So here's how you know this is you. You have as I've explained, a long list of achievements, but you don't ever feel successful. You never stay in that success and enjoy it. In fact, as soon as you've had one success, it suddenly becomes nothing. You see it in the rearview mirror, it doesn't seem like such a big deal, and you're so focused just on the next success, rushing after the next one. So I had this, as I talk about all the time, I still experience imposter syndrome, and I've got these amazing tools and a proven process for solving it so that I'm creating the results I do want in my career. But my imposter syndrome is there, and what it will do is it will try and sneakily come to the surface, or it will show up in unexpected places. And I'm someone who has really mastered this process and done extremely well as a result of doing this work and building my confidence. It is now at a level that is, well, it's a level I would never have imagined possible 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago, right? But what I found recently, I don't know if you saw my post on LinkedIn where I talked about winning the 200K plus mastermind award in Orlando in Florida, where I was this summer at a massive coaching mastermind, an international coaching mastermind that I'm part of. And the award took me completely by surprise. I was overwhelmed with emotion. My imposter syndrome was just firing off in all directions. And actually, the tears and the emotion that I was expressing as I was processing what was going on, that's another thing we learn to do in imposter syndrome coaching for lawyers, was the recognition of how success can happen sneakily, and you be so caught up in and focused on the next achievement, you miss that success. You forget to internalize it along the way, and internalizing your success is one of the key things that I teach you to do. We're on this journey together. I'm just further ahead than you, but I'm still on the journey. So that feeling that no matter what you do, your confidence doesn't grow is a result that you might be feeling in your career right now, okay? And it's clearly an unwanted result. You want to be able to feel more confident and reach success, to celebrate it, enjoy it, and grow in confidence as you go. Another sign of that, by the way, how you know this is an issue for you is your dependence, and I emphasize that word, your need for external validation. Now, this is another common one. It is always fantastic to be celebrated, to be recognized, to receive that feedback that you're doing a great job. Always welcome, always and very human to want it. But when you need it in order to feel good about yourself, or that you've done a good enough job, or to feel confident enough to go on, that's when we know it's an unwanted result, right? That's when we know that a general lack of confidence, or not having the ability to grow in confidence, is an issue, and it's an unwanted result, and we want to be able to change that for you. The fourth type of experience or result you're experiencing in your work right now might be no recognition, or being under recognized. Now, this is when I call it just not getting the recognition you deserve. You might also describe it as you're not fulfilling your potential. There's a bit of a pain. I call it the pain of unfulfilled potential, because it can feel really painful to know that you're capable, or believe at some level, even with your imposter syndrome, that you're capable of more, and yet not feel that you're living up to that, not feel able to achieve it. So this is the fourth unwanted result, and this is how you know it's you. You get overlooked for promotion. So other people are getting promoted around you, perhaps, and either it doesn't occur to somebody that you might want to be promoted to counsel, as has happened with a client of mine recently. Her peers, certain of her peers being promoted to counsel, and her being left behind. She felt overlooked. Maybe actually you are up for promotion, but your promotion keeps being delayed. You're one of the first people they come to when it seems that there isn't the capacity in the group or the department for another counsel, or another senior associate, or, as is often the case, another partner. You're waiting for where it feels like you have to wait for lots of other things to happen outside of you in order for you to get that form of recognition, get that promotion. Another way you know it's you is if, I've already talked about your peers getting promoted and you being overlooked. What about when they are properly forging ahead of you and you feel like you're being left behind? Another example is you notice that other people take credit for your work, or they're given credit. It's assumed that they've played a bigger role in a project than they actually have. And whereas people tend to underestimate the contribution that you've been making. So what I've talked about are 4 different results that you may be getting in your career right now. And all of them are unwanted results. So the lack of no work-life balance and risk of burnout, that's result number 1. No confidence, that's result number 2. Number 3 is ongoing anxiety and overwhelm and dread about your work. And then number 4 is, as I've just said, being overlooked, not getting the recognition you deserve. So what has all of this got to do with your imposter syndrome and how it's holding you back? Well, of course, these 4 results, as I said at the beginning, the results are created by your actions, by your behaviors. The results you're getting in your career right now are not the result and not a product of the external circumstances. It's not because of the industry you work in. It's not because of the culture of your firm. It's not the type of clients you have. It's not because of your boss's personality or managerial skills. It's not because the kind of opportunities that come your way. The number 1 thing I want you to take away from this session is that those results that you are getting in your career right now, your experience of work, is created by you because of the actions and the behaviors that you're doing on a day-to-day basis in your work. So what are those actions and behaviors? Well, I explained and walked you through these in the last session when I talked about the secret signs of imposter syndrome. Now, when I talked about the classic signs, I explained that these are feelings. Then I explained the secret signs and gave you all those examples, and these are actions, they're behaviors. They're all the ways in which you overwork. They're all the ways in which you overthink. They're all the ways in which you self-sabotage, undermining yourself. And they're all the ways in which you are playing small. So those 4 ways in which I've classified the types of actions, the types of behaviors, the way you are working on a day-to-day basis, those 4 categories, it is no coincidence that they line up perfectly. I was going to say beautifully, but the result isn't beautifully. The result isn't beautiful, but they do line up perfectly with the results you are creating. So let me spell that out for you, because I want you to be really, really clear. And when you go back to your desk, go back to the office after listening to this, here's what I want you to think about. Your overworking is creating the result of having no work-life balance, being at risk of burnout. Your overthinking is creating the result of constant, ongoing anxiety and overwhelm in your business. Your self-sabotage, the way you undermine yourself, is creating the result of no confidence. You never growing into your, the next level of yourself, becoming more confident in your abilities. And then the 4th category, or 4th type of action and behavior, playing small. All those different ways you play small that I talked about in the previous session, that is responsible for the result you're getting of not having the recognition that you deserve, not fulfilling your potential. Can you see how they line up exactly? So my message to you today, what I'm offering you, is that imposter syndrome, which is driving you to behave in those 4 ways, to overwork, to overthink, to self-sabotage, to play small, it's holding you back in your career because it's causing you to, imposter syndrome is holding you back in your career because it's causing you to overwork and overthink and self-sabotage and play small. In other words, imposter syndrome is responsible for the behaviors and the actions that are creating those unwanted results I talked about in this session. The unwanted result of no confidence, no work-life balance, and constantly feeling anxious and overwhelmed and not getting the recognition you deserve. There's a direct link between the two. Now, there's a lot going on here, a lot to think about. And I want to know what you do think. Is this resonating with you? How many of those unwanted results are you getting in your career right now? If you're listening to this, why not put a number in the comments below, whether it's out of the 4, whether it's 1, 2, 3, maybe all 4 of those results are representative of how you're experiencing life as a lawyer right now. Let me know. Give me your comments. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. And then have a think about, as you go through your day, how literally how you are showing up, the things you are doing from one minute to the next are directly responsible for the results that you are experiencing. So I will be coming again. I will be here again tomorrow live. Tomorrow, the Thursday, Thursday, the 8th of September. I will be live again at 9 o'clock UK time. And that's when I'll be talking about, well, I'm going to be taking you to a nice place. I'm going to be taking you to really what's possible for you as a lawyer, right? As someone who works in the legal profession. What's possible, and I want you to explore with me, and I'm going to talk you through what your dream outcome would be. Like, if you are responsible for the results you create, the experience of being a lawyer that you have, like when you recognize that you have a responsibility for that, you start to understand that you get to choose and create different results. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about what those results might be, what your dream outcome could be for doing this work with me, certainly for joining Imposter Syndrome Coaching for Lawyers. And also, it's something I'm going to be exploring in depth at the masterclass on Monday, which is the 12th of September, by the way. So if you have not signed up for that, it's at 6 p.m. UK time on Monday the 12th. The link is should be in all of the profiles on social media, also in the show notes on the podcast, or just head over to carolineflanagan.com. Okay, that's it from me today. I hope you found that useful, valuable. It's a longer episode, but super important to go through those in detail. I'll be live tomorrow. Be sure to join me, 9 o'clock UK time. Thanks for listening today. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.